Hey, so Mark, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Elise, and welcome to everyone that's joined this recording today. If you get the chance, advertise it to your fellow comrades. If they want to see it later on, it will be available sometime after the presentation's finished today. First, I'm the Corporate Partnership Manager for Fortem. Been there for 6 months. I'm 28 years ex-defence. Came across last year to help out in the Fortem space to work with Corporate Australia to get pledge partners that can help us in the space for transition, employment, education, training, learning, all of that kind of stuff. And first, let me say thank you to KPMG, who came on board as a pledge partner last year. So Fleur, we've got Fleur and her team there today. I've got a couple of questions that I'm sure everyone wants to hear more from the pledge partners who have formerly been first responders than hear me talk. But first to you, Fleur, again, thanks to KPMG becoming a pledge partner. KPMG and companies like you are critical to our success of our programs, particularly the transition and employment program that Elise runs. So Fleur, I guess my first question to you is about KPMG signing on as a pledge partner, what it means to you, KPMG, and how you think you'll be able to support our first responders in their journey as they transition in the future.
Yes, thank you so much, Mark and Elise. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We feel very fortunate to be asked to talk to you, not only to share our experiences, thoughts and stories, but also to give you insight into KPMG and why we are a pledge partner with Fortem. So my name's Fleur Carmichael and I'm the National Security and Justice Sector Coordinator here at KPMG Australia. Our sector focuses on national security, justice, courts and corrections, policing and law enforcement, and emergency management agencies from across Australia. But we are a lot broader than that as a firm, and the work that we're doing with our clients is just growing at a rapid rate. And we have a number of projects on the go ranging from digital transformation, finance, forensics and audits, strategic planning, policy, operations advisory, and people, culture and wellbeing. So we are a very proud founding partner of Fortem and signed Fortem's Transition and Employment Pledge last year. We've got unwavering commitment and support to providing employment processes for first responders. So we have a very first responder friendly recruitment program, but we're also focusing a lot on retention, the training opportunities, and how we can provide our first responder community with a safe and supportive workplace culture. When we bring first responders into the firm, we carefully acknowledge the significant life change that this journey will bring. So we aim to ensure that the transition period is easy as possible. We know that first responders have a diverse range of skills and abilities and bring great value, not just within emergency services and law enforcement, but also to the broader firm. So we're very, very proud of our partnership and see it as an opportunity to support individuals transitioning out of first responder employment, both professionally and personally. So as I said, we're very proud of our relationship and partnerships that we've got with Fortem Australia. And we are doing significant work in this area to make sure that when first responders join our firm, that they are supported and have ample opportunities to grow and lead in any area of work that they want to.
Awesome, thank you, Fleur. And just a plug for everybody out there, if you go onto our Fortem homepage and look at the Transition Employment Program, there is a link to our pledge partners. On that screen, you'll see the logos of all the corporate pledge partners that we've signed up, a little bit about the company blurb, but more importantly, you can actually click on the logo and go to their website, find out a little bit more about them. And some of them are actually aligned to the kind of roles and that are available for first responders. It's a work in progress. We're going to make it better, but it's there for a first point of reference if you want to have a look. So much more importantly, we're going to jump onto those former first responders working at KPMG. I've got an order of batting. So Miles, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. So Miles spent 30 years combined policing. Thank you so much for your service. That's amazing. But I wanted to pick on you first, Miles, because you moved across in the middle of 2021. So I guess it'd be great if you could give a little bit of background about yourself, your transition journey, and being ex-military. I'd love to know what tips you can give the guys on the call, and also lessons learned. So Miles, I'm going to throw across to you, and Darren, I'll let you give you a heads up. You'll be next.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks for the opportunity to share my experience and, KPMG's value that I think we offer to first responders. We're, obviously with the number of people that are ex-first responders in the organisation, I think we understand that transition quite well, and we've put some really good mechanisms in place to support that transition. So my story is a long time ago. I used to be in Victoria Police, and then had a career break and went and travelled the world, came back, met my wife, and settled in Brisbane, Queensland. So joined the Queensland Police. So quite a broad range of experience there, general duties and investigations, and ended up in tactical policing, doing a lot of, I suppose, the high risk type work there. And at about, when was that, mid-2000s, there was a lot happening in the region, and the AFP was standing up a deployable tactical group. So lots of deployments overseas to Solomon Islands, East Timor and Christmas Island, and then moved into, once I started getting a bit old for all of that sort of carry on, went into search and rescue, and that necessitated a move down to Canberra, which was a great move for the family. But then I got into operational planning and exercising and training, that side of it, operational readiness, those sort of activities, which really introduced me to the whole of government arrangements around security and policing and major events, and working within that system. So while I was doing that, I was doing business studies, and that sort of opened up an opportunity with friends that I have in KPMG who sort of introduced me to the opportunities. And before I knew it, I had an offer, and I started a new career. So my journey in KPMG, I started the middle of last year, and to be honest, the timing couldn't have been worse with COVID. So I started on the Monday, and by Wednesday we were in lockdown. So I was rapidly trying to onboard from the kitchen table into KPMG, and then my first engagement was on a defence job. So I suppose the logistics of adjusting to a new firm and a new client environment coming out of policing, and then having worked with defence, I sort of understood the culture but hadn't worked in it directly. So there was a bit to get up to speed with initially, and I have to admit it was a bit of a challenge, just I think the remoteness. But I think KPMG supports staff working from home very well. It was just quite a steep learning curve to come into that environment. So that the lockdown went for a couple of months, by which time I was well up to speed. And then post-Christmas, I've moved on to another engagement with defence. So a little bit of a challenge learning that defence landscape, and I suppose the change in dynamic from being the centre of an organisation, being an operational police officer, to being a support in a supporting role to those operational areas was a little bit challenging at times, just the shift in dynamic and understanding that relationship. Also, the activities that KPMG has going on and the opportunities for involvement there are really, really exciting. So what I've found was getting the balance right between client work and internal commitments with KPMG, and really maximising those opportunities can be a bit of a balancing act. The realities of working in consulting, full stop, and KPMG in particular, is that you don't have a direct line of supervision that you're used to within policing or other environments. excuse me. So you really need to self-manage. There's no one person that has full visibility on all of your commitments. At any given time, you can be working on any number of different activities, and you really need to self-manage that. So that's one of my key takeaways at the moment, is getting that balance right. It's there's so many exciting opportunities that you want to be involved in all of them. So you need to measure that. But one of the key things I've found about KPMG is the real diversity of people and the amazing mix of really fresh talent that comes through the early recruitment stages into the consulting world. Tend to pick very qualified and outgoing, engaging people, but then the mix of experience that we bring into the firm as well. And that's where, you know, Fortem and first responders really add value to the organisation, is that depth of experience and knowledge. So when you mix those two, we've got a really quite a potent sort of combination there, which is really good. So I think they're my key takeaways and my experiences. I'm happy to, I don't know whether you want to move on or have any questions. I'll leave that with you, Mo.
Thanks, Miles. Great advice, great tips, and an interesting journey, and I appreciate that. I will jump to the others, and we'll probably look at questions at the end. But one last one for you, with regards to your policing background. There's a strong culture there, dare I say, tribalism in some way, shape, or form. I just wonder if you could talk about how you found changing and adapting from that culture. You did touch on it about, you know, you're suddenly on your own. You don't have a distinct line of command where you have to report up and down all of the time. So I was wondering how you found that cultural shift from the policing across to the corporate business sector.
A mix, actually. Part of it is very refreshing. It's good to be out of that environment, but I think there's also, particularly in policing culture and the work I've done with ambulance in particular, there's a real camaraderie as well, which is it's great, but you know, it's quite unique as well. And I think you need to understand that when you leave that environment, those particular, that camaraderie and bonding that you get through shared experience and in quite challenging times isn't there. So I think it's a mix. It's refreshing, but you need to understand that it will be different.
Awesome. Thanks, Miles. That's great. I'm going to jump across to the west to Darren Henstock over there, who did 25 years policing both in the UK and West Australia. Thank you so much for your service, Darren. It's really the same question to you. I know you moved across not too long ago. So again, your tips, lesson learned as part of your transition journey, please.
Thanks, Mark, and welcome everyone. So I did 21 years of policing in the UK, in West Midlands Police, and then took the opportunity to move the entire family without even coming to Australia first to West Australia Police and see what it was like in Australia. And thoroughly made the right choice to move to Australia, and we have a great family life on the back of that. But policing was probably waning in my my experience. So totally 25 years I've now done or had done in policing. And when I was in the UK, I was hedging towards leaving. I was working, I'd been fortunate enough to be involved with some projects that got me into Cambridge University to do a master's degree, met a whole load of different people at senior levels of policing from around the world on my cohort, and got to seeing that there was a life outside of a single police force. So it gave me itchy feet. It made me struggle with the whole idea of one police force just looking inwardly and really introspectively. And I was just moving off into, I did research into body-worn video when it was just coming on into mainstream policing. Implemented that into the UK through the West Midlands, Greater Manchester Police, a few others, and then got into the mobility side. So that even raised my eyes around all the other agencies out there. And I was working embedded with another consultancy firm back then, and realistically, I was going to go and work for them. The opportunity was better, the support was better, the idea of being able to lift my profile and help other agencies was what I was really after, than just concentrating on one small police force. But being at university with the then commissioner of, or now commissioner of WA Police, I sort of gravitated off to Western Australia. Thought it might be different, the grass might be greener, and it was for a little bit, and it was exciting and new and changed, but very soon those experiences started to come back to me of that introspective view of policing, and I had other ideas about what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do things, and I left WA Police, leading their digital policing division, and had done again body-worn video mobility and all that in police, and was enjoying talking to other agencies and talking to other police forces, and it was coming to its natural life. I wasn't happy, and I was working probably for 2 years to try and get myself out of policing, and I suppose that would be one of my biggest tips. And I spent an hour talking to one of the guys from WA Police yesterday about this, and it's a runway, and people will have heard that as they go trying to get promoted internally, but it really is. There's a process to go through of starting to set up your idea. What do you want to do? How do you want to do it? Don't rush into it. You've got a huge amount of skills, and that's part of it as well, that first responders have significant skills, and one of my big bugbears with policing in general is that they don't tell you what those are. They don't support you in trying to develop your skills and articulate what those skills are. And I know every single first responder has got a huge amount of transferable skills, and that's the benefit of Fortem, I see. And if they'd had Fortem 2 years ago, I would have really taken up the support that they can offer. But look to where you can be and give yourself a time frame as to how that's going to work for you, and talk to your family. It's a huge change. I didn't think I was your average police officer. All up to the superintendent ranks, I was different. I talked to people differently. I engaged differently. And I thought, yeah, this will be an easy step out. But that day when I walked out the door after 25 years of police service was a little bit more emotional than I gave it credit for. I was probably significantly more institutionalized than I gave myself credit for. And moving into a private sector agency was a bit scary. But I was really heavily supported by the partners that brought me across. So understand all those transitions that are going to take place, understand where you want to be, plan for where you want to be, start working with the guys at Fortem to do your CV, to understand your colleagues, your contacts, start talking to places like this, talk to us that have been and made that transition, because it is huge. And I didn't give it enough credit. I don't think that big change that it will be. It's worked for me. I've only been in KPMG just before Christmas, but I 100% know that I've made the right choice, and really, really happy in the choice that I've made, and really heavily supported. So I would only echo what Miles has said, and Miles and I had a chance to catch up last week over in Canberra, and it was good to meet face to face with another person that's been through the same process as I have, and really have very similar experiences. Key for me is that treated like an adult, and as Miles says, that comes with a few problems itself, because I want to grab all these different opportunities that are out there, but the support is very different as well, and they really do value the experience that myself and Miles and Alan and James all bring in various stages, various aspects of it. That's valued, and you know you're valued. And as I felt tolerated only in WA Police, I now feel valued for my opinion and what I can bring to the table by KPMG. And I think probably the first time I've genuinely been asked, how am I going, has been in KPMG. Yeah, it's been asked in police, and I probably have done similar in my time in police of, how you going? Yeah, okay, dry your eyes, princess, and off you go and get on with it. But here it was key. And speaking to my lead partner last week around how I'm going, and one of my regular catch-ups, it was, well, if you don't succeed, we don't succeed. So why would we impact you to do all the things you want to do the role you want to get to, have the training you want to do? And that's refreshing, really refreshing to hear that somebody's going to support you and put that wraparound care around you to give you those opportunities. And again, really, as Miles was saying, that mix and diversity of what you can get involved in. I'm sat working with WA Health at the moment, putting together, or have been putting together, their COVID response, similar tactical stuff that I've done with policing, but helping consultants understand a dynamic, stressful task force type situation which they struggle with. It's been great for me to be in there to give them that experience of that sort of stressful environment and those immediate decision making environments. But I've also been working alongside Mumbai police, Greek police, Canadian police to get their different experiences moving forwards, benefiting from my experience. And when people have been asking me in the last couple of weeks, what does KPMG mean to you? I think the experience of me presenting worldwide internally to KPMG, and then taking a phone call 2 weeks later to say, we're putting this proposal into Mumbai Police. Really love it if you would be able to look in and support us, and from the benefit of your years of policing. That's it. That's all I ever wanted to do, and it's paying me back in spades. So that diversity of people that are around me, I've got a team that I work with, and I build for each different engagement we have. They're really smart. I know they can go and deliver these jobs, and I just give them a touch and in the management side of things. So diversity of people and the diversity of roles that we engage with, that I'm talking to people all around the world, talking to people internally, talking to the likes of Miles and Alan about how we're doing stuff with Brisbane City Council, with Defence, and all sorts of the touch that KPMG has around the world and in all the various aspects is really exciting. So that's probably from me, Mark, if that helps anybody out there. I really hope it does.
Thanks, Darren. Great journey, some great points you brought up there. A couple of things if I could pick up on. You talked about the transferability of skills and everything. I've been surprised, again, I'll declare I'm ex-defence. I'm surprised how much you undersell yourself, the transferable skills and everything you've got. A pitch, we do have pledge partners that help us with recognition of prior learning. So that's something we think is valuable to help some of the guys that might be on this call, and girls, if they want to get the recognition of prior learning, we do help in that space as well. Transition fascinates me as a defence guy. When I went to look to get out, they have transition seminars in defence, which is a novel idea. And I'll always remember the first one I went to. The first comment was, 2 years before you get out, you should think about doing this. I was ready to get out in 3 weeks. So again, you're right. It's a runway. You need to plan it early. You need to engage your family early. You need to engage others early. One question for you, Darren, if I may. When you finally got out of uniform and moved into that corporate side, how did you find the brotherhood and sisterhood that you left? How did you find them react to you? Any differently? Do they seek you out for support, advice, mentoring? How did you find that once you were outside of the brotherhood, so to speak?
Yeah, there's a group of us that have all left at around a similar time and all gone into the private sector. Probably should have raised some alarm bells for WA Police, but it hasn't, that you've lost a significant portion of people. But yeah, my phone hasn't stopped ringing, the door hasn't stopped being knocked around people asking, how can we do the same thing and can we get out? And you've got those people that have gone out, come to me and said, well, I'm only going to leave if I can earn 180, 200,000 bucks a year. And I've got to go, okay, but you've got to show me some significant skills to do that, unless you want to go into the mining industry but that there's a process by which you need to do and walk them back through what they can do and how they can do it. And yeah, I would say twice a week I'm speaking to somebody and having a coffee with somebody out of WA Police or wider, saying, how can we do this? What can we do? What's the process? How can we get support to tell us how to do this stuff? How do you find moving away from the comfort and security of policing to what you're doing now? And I've got the guys here to bounce those ideas off. So that brotherhood has existed, and we've got that similar sort of thing within KPMG, and we all know each other and we all can have a chat. And hopefully now we're traveling, we can have a beer like Miles and I did. So it's all good.
Excellent. Thanks, Darren. And Fleur, just in general for the pledge partnership thing, one of the caveats we put there for all of our partners that there needs to be some kind of engagement in the mentorship kind of role pre, during and after employment. So it's refreshing to hear that from KPMG doing that kind of stuff. And I apologize to Andrew. I said the order I'd go in. I hadn't told Andrew that he's next, but Andrew, you're next, and then it'll be you, Alan. Andrew, I noticed in your bio, you did 11 years also in the West Australian Police, but also 8 years in the Royal Australian Navy. So you've got a slightly different background to the others. So again, similar thing to you, tips, lesson learned, and how you found your transition journey. Have we got Andrew on there?
Wake up, mate.
Alan, we'll have to do you then. Sorry, we'll jump across to you. I know you did ACT policing for 9 years. So again, same question to you if you wouldn't mind. And if Andrew comes back online, we'll jump to him next. Thanks, Alan.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. So yeah, a bit of a shorter journey than most in this room. I did 4 years split between general duties and the public order nightlife policing sort of team. Best years of my life there, I'm afraid. And then 4 years in investigations and leading investigations teams. And I qualified as a bomb technician during that time and did some work with the team there as well. Andrew and I are quite similar in that we probably weren't as brave as Darren and Miles in terms of exploring what other transferable skills we have. We just went to an area in KPMG called forensic, where a lot of the skills we provide clients are in fact core skills that most police officers would have: investigations, interviewing, as well as branching into a few new things like fraud risk management. Probably one of the key challenges I'd like to talk about, and everyone's policing journey is different. We're all different people. I'm a very social animal, and I had the misfortune of joining KPMG 2 days before Canberra was plunged into a lockdown. So it was a bit of a challenging time going from a team where, you know, you're in the office playing darts with your colleagues to just working from home, and the dog's on the beanbag now. He's my office companion most days. The key bit of advice I want to impart probably is, even if you're quitting the police, don't quit your mates. Like, for quite some time, they probably will be still the backbone of your social circle. And in policing, you jump into a car with a colleague and you may never have met them before. By the end of the shift, you might have been in physical danger together, situations where your physical safety is dependent on the other person, and you might know everything about them, from how many ex-wives they have right down to their shoe size. Things are a bit different where we are at the moment. It takes probably a bit longer to develop those bonds with people, and it's not a bad thing. It's just something to be aware of. So as you transition, make sure that socially, psychologically, it's not a running leap off a cliff. You are just taking one step at a time with a clear goal in mind, as well as 1 foot on solid ground.
Thanks, Alan. Question for you on that. From what I've observed and seen with talking to people from the first response, you see a lot of, you've got quite good black humor. You see things that most of the normal community don't see at all. How are you able, and I get it, you go to KPMG and it is a different kind of structure out there. And there's a lot of that stuff that your policing mates you can talk to. It's quite black. You know, other people, if they heard it, would be horrified. I'm wondering how you manage to separate those two between the work and your previous policing experience.
I'm laughing because Andrew actually has a very good story about how he may have shared some black humor with some colleagues, and it didn't go down all that well. I stay in touch with my mates from the old job, and I kind of get my dark humor outlet that way. And I also talk to people who are like-minded. In the forensic team, we have plenty of ex-defense personnel, and having spent a bit of time in defense myself, I find the cultures are very similar in that respect. Yeah, and there's a lot of, particularly in forensic, there's quite a few of us former serving police officers out there, and when we're on a call, just the two of us, it's almost like you're back there in the old job.
Awesome, thanks. Again, on a broader pledge partnership, when we're talking to the pledge partners that are coming on board, we're actually encouraging them to have what we call a breakout area. And we're trying to articulate, if you could do this where, you know, if a first responder is having a bad day or they want to vent about something, there's somewhere they can go where no one will be offended. And I think you will need that. And I think there's benefits in having that in all of the organizations that support us. So thank you so much, Alan. I appreciate that. I can't see Andrew's name on the screen, so I'll assume he hasn't joined. If he has, I'll jump to him afterwards. James, if I could go to you, if you wouldn't mind. 7 years in Queensland Police, but I've seen that you've obviously had quite a long and successful career at KPMG. At your stage in the career where you are, I just wonder if you could perhaps talk about, your journey was probably a while ago, but looking back on it, what did you bring across from your policing background that has made you a success, and how did you use it in your time with KPMG?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, look, I think of the guys on the call, I've probably got the least amount of service and probably the most amount of time at KPMG, although it's only about 4.5 years now at KPMG, and then sort of more corporate for the previous sort of 20 odd years. I think it was a quite a rough journey, and hearing some of the other guys speak, I probably did it the wrong way. I probably took the leap and should have thought it through a little bit more. And I pretty much ostracized myself from my friendship group, and I think that was probably my doing, and I shouldn't have done it. So I would again sort of just emphasise what the other guys are doing about talk about support groups within the policing context. Keep those, but I stepped off, and for probably 2 to 3 years really struggled to find my way within a corporate environment. I had changed away from a career in policing and investigations and everything that was sort of tied up in that, and moved into finance. I didn't really do that for any specific reason, except I kind of like numbers a bit, so I gravitated more towards that space. And it took me 2 or 3 years to really find a place where I felt like I was actually contributing again, and that I was earning income again, and was able to hold my head up high and say, this is what I'm doing now. So I didn't really think too much about those transferable skills, and it's only in latter years that I've really started to appreciate what those skills are that I think most police have to a greater or lesser extent, and don't necessarily put them on when they're applying for roles. So I thought I'd try and be a little bit specific. So I hope that what I think probably 5 for me, and the I should role is not in an actual defence or justice. Typically, I work with clients. 99% of my work.
James, if I could jump in just a sec, I'm not sure if it's for everyone, but you're breaking up just a little bit. I'm not sure if it's, yeah, I'm seeing some head nods. It's just cutting in and out. If you want to just come over that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I can do. I'll just change my internet connection, but I think it drops in a little bit.
Hey, what I'll do, James, if you want to just jump that connection, I've noticed Andrew's popped back online, and I apologize, Andrew. I'm not sure if you heard some of the previous questions, but I did see there that you spent 11 years with West Australian Police and 8 years in the Royal Australian Navy, so you've got a slightly different view to others, no doubt. But again, just keen to hear about how you transitioned out of the police into KPMG, lessons learned, tips for the people listening in today. Thanks, Andrew.
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay now? Cool. Cheers. Yeah, thanks, Mark, and hi to everyone who's tuning in. Yeah, I did hear everyone else speak before as well. So I'd probably just be echoing and reiterating what basically everyone else has said. But I just also would like to reiterate for people not to sell themselves short, and also not be talked out of leaving. Push yourself and feel free to get out of that comfort zone. For me, leaving defence, joining police was something I always wanted to do anyway. So, I did my time in defence and just moved on. The transition for myself, going into something, of similar sort of work, I suppose, wasn't a huge transition for me. That sort of mateship is quite similar. So, yeah, I think police to KPMG, I actually think I transitioned better than what I thought I was going to. Really comes down to, like, my team. I'm on the over in Perth on the forensic risk consulting team. Everybody's been super helpful over here and really assisted with that transition. So going back to my earlier point is really just don't sell yourself short and the skills that you have. KPMG are really big on that sort of that leadership component that you develop in Defence Force and also in the police, and also your communication skills as well. Yeah, like I said, don't sell yourself short on those sort of things. Although, like for myself, I only have my formal qualifications come as a result from RPL from my time in Defence and then police. And I sort of was thinking, you know, like I looked at everybody else who was applying for jobs or who had these jobs within KPMG, and I was just thinking, you know, I've advanced diplomas from my work, but no real formal qualifications. I didn't go to university. I did 3 weeks before joining the Defence Force, but that was enough for me. So I applied for KPMG. It was a couple of months sort of process, all happened pretty quickly, right place, right time, I think as well. But what I really noticed between KPMG and other companies that I applied for positions or had interviews with, that they really respected our skill set. And yeah, so it wasn't, so I think in that regard, it was really, I found the transition quite easy. So I've only been with KPMG since January as well, but really enjoying the change from almost 19 odd years to private sector's been quite good. Also, just don't think that you've got, like, you don't have you know, the required education or qualifications as well. I think 70% of the learning, I can only obviously speak for KPMG, but is done on the job. So you'll be taught as you go, and there's the opportunity to, you know, do courses, to even, I've just applied to do my MBA, and you don't necessarily need any qualifications to be able to do that. You know, if you're a supervisor or you've had a managing or supervisory role in police or the Defence Force, they'll take that into account, and you can apply for your MBA that way, or other courses that you'd like to do as well. So yeah, there's a lot of on-the-job training and learning that you can do once you're here. It's not expected that you're going to know everything. Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Andrew. That's interesting. You partly answered a question that came through. I think it actually came through while you were talking, Alan. So it's to both of you kind of thing. It was talking about the training, any external degrees or training that you had to do to make you more appealing to the employer. I sense that with KPMG, you were able to come in, and obviously now you've enrolled for an MBA and everything. Possibly for you or Alan, did you have to do any other kind of training that made you more desirable for KPMG? Or was it like with Andrew's case, you were able to do it through KPMG once you were on board?
None for me to come on board. I was fortunate enough that Defence put me through a uni degree before I left. One thing we did notice is that to bid on a lot of federal government jobs, you do need a qualification, which most people from police and Defence would be able to get quite easily, 100% RPL. That was a certificate for in government investigations. So if Andrew needed that for federal government tomorrow, we've got pathways to get him RPL overnight and have the certificate in his hands a week later. Yeah, traditionally university degrees have been looked favourably upon, but particularly in forensic, we are favouring a more skills-based approach rather than qualifications approach.
Thanks, Alan. I think that's a good thing for the audience to hear, because I think there's a fear that a lot of the RPL stuff, because it's an associate diploma kind of level, it's not at that university master's level or anything like that. So yeah, thanks, I appreciate that. And I've seen James, you look like you're back on there. Are you able to finish off to talk to us? He's gone quiet. Maybe he's playing around with his internet.
I was having a few troubles rejoining, but I'd love to just step in and just chat about our approach to learning at KPMG and also the recruitment processes. So we take probably an approach around the 70-20-10 model of learning. So we value that a lot of learning that people do is through experiences or on-the-job training. So that formal component, whilst amazing, doesn't form a huge part of our approach to learning and recruitment. So especially with being a pledge partner with Fortem, we will, as I mentioned before, have a first responder friendly approach to a recruitment. So whether or not that's having people on the interview panel who may come from a similar background, who understand the skills, attributes, knowledge and abilities that you'll bring, because we understand that, you know, it's not traditional consulting skills that you may bring to the job, but we understand that you have a vast array of skills. You're highly adaptable to complex situations. You have strong critical thinking skills. So please don't let it be a deterrent to applying for a role with KPMG or, you know, another firm as well. But we will do our best to ensure that, you know, it's an individualized approach to recruitment for you, rather than putting you in a bucket and having all of these expectations that we're looking for. We understand the skills that you bring are highly diverse, and we have a great network of first responders across our firm who do connect, as it's been evident today with Darren and Miles and the beer that they had. We do encourage that connection and staying connected to your communities outside of the firm as well.
Hey, thanks, Fleur. That's really reassuring to hear. And I know that KPMG has that. I'll be totally honest. Some of our other pledge partners don't yet, but Elise and I spend a lot of time talking to those other pledge partners to explain the culture. More than 50% of our staff are ex-first responders. So we do spend our time talking about that kind of stuff just to help them get a better feel and understanding as well. Fleur, before I throw back to Elise for anything that's come in, I haven't seen any more questions on the side of my screen. Fleur, anything more you want to get out of your team or from yourself before I ask Elise?
No, certainly. If you've got any further questions or require any support, please feel free to reach out. I'm sure Alan, Darren, Andrew, Miles, and also James would be more than happy to connect with you to go into a bit more detail about their experiences. But also please feel free to reach to me if you've got any questions about recruitment processes, learning and development, or I guess anything generally about the firm. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Fleur. And a pitch for Elise and the Transition in Program team. Elise has 4 amazing case managers. So any of the guests that are on listening in today, please go into your case manager or to Elise through we've got a transition web inbox on our website as well. Put your questions in, come in there. We're happy to enable the contacts to KPMG and our pledge partners down the track as needed. And if necessary, set up these kind of chats where you can learn a little bit more. So I'll stop my hosting for a second. I'll flick to Elise to see if she wants any more out of me. This is my dry first run doing it for Fortem. So hopefully she gives me the tick of approval. I might get to do it again.
You will, Mark. You're doing really good. I'm very proud. So I think I've got a question. It's a curious question for all of you, really. In your roles that you're doing now, what's the percentage that you work from home? Do you fully work from home? Is it a hybrid position? Because one of you touched on it before about, I think it might have been Miles, about the transitioning, and you talked about the COVID, the shutdown, and, you know, life as it is now, we all pretty much do hybrid roles or just fully work from home. I suppose, yeah, what's the percentage and how do you support yourself? Because, you know, generally as a police officer, you have the team around you, you're out and about, you're social, and then, you know, it could be quite, you know, you're kind of by yourself in a sense. So, yeah, a stacking question really. What's your percentage and how do you support yourself, or any tips?
So at least
I'll go
you
first,
go, Miles.
Alan, if that's all right. Sorry, mate. So KPMG is a 3-hub model. So work from home, work from the KPMG office, or work from the client site, and that's dependent on one, your circumstances, but also the client requirements as well. For me, the pick of them is the KPMG office because you get a great view and it's pretty state of the art. But in reality, for me, a lot of the work I do in defence is classified, so I need to be on their networks. So I spend a lot of time at the defence site, but the times working from home, you're right. I think that's an adjustment we've all had to make over the last 2 years, trying to get that balance right and the separation from home and work. And your dogs tend to become your best friends. And, I'm very good at making cups of tea for my wife and all those sort of things, and that's the reality of the world we're in now. So I don't think there's any particular key that's specific to this line of work. I think with the 3 options to work, if you have the flexibility with the client, you can find that right mix for you. So there's definitely options there. Sorry, Alan, I jumped in, mate, but back to you.
All good. I think if you wanted me to put a number and a percentage on it, I think it's 20%, so 1 day a week for me. And that ties directly into the strategy I use to support myself at the moment. 1 day a week is about when the other people from my team will come into the office. If they were coming in 5 days a week, I'd be right there with them just for that social element. But yeah, 1 day a week. And it's purely to get that social exposure. Working on multiple client laptops, it's actually easier for me to work from home. But yeah, I need to go out and have lunch with people. Can't be here all the time.
And that's great, Alan. And Elise, if I can throw in something, in my previous life, I worked for Toll Group, Fujitsu, Accenture, mainly in the defense space, obviously, because of my background. I'll give you one huge tip about working from home. And because of my military background, I am the worst at it. I start too early, I finish too late, and I never turn off my devices. As I've got older and mature, I should be a lot more mature because of my age, but I'm a slow learner sometimes. If you do work from home, just think about turning your machines off at certain times and taking a break. And I agree with Alan. Make sure you go out and socialize. It's better than sitting there and just having your dog sitting next to you, which I sometimes do as well. Sorry, Elise, over to you.
Oops, no, that was great. Anyone else want to give their tips, Darren? Do you want to give yours?
Yeah. So mine is whatever I want to work. I can pick and choose where I want to be and how I want to be. So if it works for me at home, I can be at home. If it works for me to be in the office, I can be in the office. At the moment, the client doesn't want us in their offices, so that's straightforward with COVID. But going back to what Mark said, KPMG trust me to make an informed decision and be in the right place at the right time. So if I want to go for a paddle in the morning and then walk the dog, take the kids to school, as long as I deliver my hours at some time and client is foremost, then they're all good with that. I know Alan said that he likes going out and meeting people, but he stood us up last week, so no, that's not true at all.
Cool. I'm happy, Elise. Before you say anything, I just firstly, can I say again to KPMG, thank you so much for becoming a pledge partner. It means a lot to us. We had our inaugural Gala Ball last week, and Darren, I recognised your head there at the ball, having a good time. And thank you so much for about 20 of your colleagues came along to that as well. We hope to have more. We hope to have more events around the countryside as well, and you'll be invited to those as well. But again, thanks so much for becoming a pledge partner. It means a lot to us. And your support is critical for the Transition Employment Program that Elise runs so well. To those listening into it, either now or later on down the track, please come into our websites if you've got any questions to ask. And Fleur, Alan, Miles, Andrew, Darren, thank you again so much for your time. Over to you, Elise.
Thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I know so many people are going to get so much out of this. I think just to wrap it up, I'm just going to put you all on the spot. And if you could just name one transferable skill that you think you had or would be important to share for those probably going along the journey like you. If you could just name one for me, and then that will help people with their resumes as well, I think. So over to you.
And how about I go, let me go, good call.
Oh.
No, I was gonna say, we'll go around in order. We'll start off Andrew.
Yep, sure. I think if we're going skill set, leadership, and then more of a trait, resilience.
Thank you. Alan.
Verbal communication, being able to answer tough questions from clients at the drop of a hat. That's certainly something that you develop in policing when you get a curveball from an interview and adjust on the fly.
Darren.
Alan stole my thunder there. Let's go decision making. Good decision making and quick decision making. So that's good for responders.
Miles.
I think the ability to be measured and sort of controlled to some degree in your emotions. You're not suppressing them, but you have that ability to present what needs to be presented at any given time, and which again comes back to decision making and those sort of skills. But I think that ability to have self-control and being measured in your response in any given circumstance.
Thanks. I'm not sure James is there. No, I get it a shake. But again, for you first responders, leadership, communication, decision making. I heard you've got it in spades. Don't undersell yourself.
Wonderful. Anything final from you, Fleur?
No, except just a massive thank you for inviting us along today, and thank you so much, Alan, Darren, Miles, Andrew, and James as well for sharing your stories and your thoughts. And yes, thank you.
Well, this will make Mark excited that we are 4 minutes or 3 minutes now on schedule. So yeah, everyone gets 3 minutes back in their diaries. Sorry, I just stole your wording, Mark. Well, that's it. I'm going to stop the recording now, and I can send it to you all once it's downloaded. But thank you, everyone, and have a beautiful weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great